So this is Amira Dance Productions, and we've been a dance studio for years. We've been a dance studio since 1974. The building that we're in, 1702 West Douglas, has been a dance studio off and on since 1920. For a while, this building also contained a speakeasy, and a number of people have experienced odd experiences here. My first odd experience was in 2008. I used to live about an hour away, and so I would come up here in the morning and work on choreography before I went to work at my job down the street. And I was working on choreography at 5:30 in the morning, 3 days a week. And I was a fairly new dancer. I had just been dancing for 2 years at that point, and I would get stuck. And I had a gig that I was doing in Fort Worth, Texas, that was really important to me. And I was just absolutely stuck on a key point in my choreography, and I was just pacing and help me, and all of a sudden, all the hair on my arms stood straight up, like there was electricity in the room. And this series of moves came into my mind, and I think there were 5 moves, and 4 of them were moves that I had not ever been taught. And they blended beautifully with the choreography that I was working on. So I really feel like, you know, of the thousands of dancers who've been through this building, at least 1 or 2 of them heard me that morning and helped me out, because I was stuck and I had less than a month to go.
So the first time that we were doing the ghost tours as the security people, and
we were switching off. She was going with one group and I was going with the other. And I believe I was standing over there and we just heard the deadbolt just click. And when we went and checked the door, it just opened. And they said, "Oh, that deadbolt's never worked." And we went over and we started playing with it. It was the exact sound. There really wasn't any movement in the door. It just clicked, closed, it was locked.
the deadbolt clicked like somebody didn't want you going into that room. Can't come in here.
And then a little later on, it actually clicked again.
We were telling people about
Got it.
having heard it before,
And then it clicked again.
and we were all looking at the door. There was light coming underneath the door. Could not see any footsteps or anything, and it clicked again. The only correlation was that used to be an office.
Well, the second time we were actually talking about it clicking when it clicked.
Yeah.
And I believe the first time people were arriving and just asking questions about the building itself.
The next experience I had here was in 2010, and it was down the hallway. I had a group here sewing, and we were just kind of sharing stories about the studio. Many people find the studio a little too creepy to be here by themselves. I've never had that experience, but I grew up in a haunted house, and so the creep factor's not there for me. But I was leaving the parlor and coming into the main hallway, and there was a shadow coming from this side, and I turned my head and the shadow shot up and went over my head, and it felt exactly like it feels when you're under a skylight and a cloud goes over. That exact same feeling. And then I saw the shadow start to come down, and I turned my head again, and I saw a man in a suit, probably from the 1930s or 1940s, walk down the hallway, probably for 1001, 1002, and then he vanished. The thing that struck me about that was his awareness of me. Even though he didn't turn around and look at me, he did not want to walk right through me. It was I was shook up. I mean, I had never seen anything quite that visual, but he came this way and literally shot out of the way so that he would not pass through my body. So I feel like the spirits that are in this building, for the most part, are very respectful of those of us that dance here. The last experience that I had was in 2012, and it was in this studio just off to my left. And it was very interesting because I was in a meeting with 2 other people, and I kept hearing water running and the sound of water stirring. And I looked down, and my glass, I had a water glass, and the water was rotating in my glass. I had worked for the Kansas Geological Survey at that point, so immediately I went home afterward and I looked up to see if we'd had an earthquake in Wichita, which we had not. There was a paranormal group that came through here with equipment about a year ago, and one of the sounds that they actually recorded in this back studio was the sound of water running or being splashed in a glass. And they did not know my story until after they captured that recording. So we have some pretty interesting experiences here at Amira's.